In this Kotlin on Android development tutorial, I'm going to explain how you can access your accounts by using EasyPermissions. Welcome to Mobile Application Tutorials. My name's Nigel. Okay, to access your accounts, it's classified as a critical permission. If I go to the website here, here's the URL for that. There's two types of permissions: normal, where you don't need to get the user to grant permission, or dangerous permissions. So if we go down here and I select permission groups and I scroll on down here, there's a classification of dangerous permissions where you actually need to get a runtime permission, use a dialog to just get the user to grant permission or not, as the case may be. And we want to use get accounts here because we need to set up an account that's going to help us communicate with the Google APIs to get permissions. In this case, it's going to be the YouTube data API. So we're going to set up that, and in this case we're going to be using a Google API EasyPermissions just to make it easier to set up runtime permissions. Anyway, so we'll go back and start the tutorial. If you do want to follow this, or do you want access to this documentation here, you will need to sign up for the free membership. There will be a card and a description of how you can get access to that, and it's free. Okay, so we'll make a start. So we're going to need to get some dependencies first. One's for the EasyPermissions library, one's for the actual YouTube that we set up in the previous tutorial, and one's going to be just to enable internet connection, basically to communicate with the online Google APIs. So going to my tutorial here, I'm just going to copy and paste these permissions here. I couldn't possibly remember, and I don't want to take the time typing on this out here, so you can do the same if you want, or you can just type it character by character on your computer. Now we'll go to Android Studio, and in the dependencies here I'm just going to paste what I just copied. Now you will need to sync those files. Now there is an error in my build of Android Studio. Hope you may or may not see that depending on what version of release or release of Android Studio that you're using. So it's a release between the test code and the current code that we're using. So there is a fix for that. I'm going to go back to my website here, and I'm just going to copy this line here. It does need to go into the Android tag. So configurations, or copy that back into Android Studio. Make sure you're inside Android here and just under build types. I'm going to paste that in there and resync here. We now need to access some more permissions, so we'll go into our AndroidManifest file. And I'm going to add a couple of permissions here. One is to get account access. Another one is because we're accessing online Google APIs, we're going to need internet permission. It's now done. We can go into our main activity. Okay, I've got a companion object here that represents static constants from Java. I'm going to need to add some more values here, some request values, as well as the scope and a preferred account name, just to make, when we reuse the app, that will get saved as a shared preference. Okay, so there's going to be a number of these. The first one's going to be request permission get accounts. Get accounts, give it a unique number. I'll just go up in 1. The next value is going to be request, what is it, account pickup. 2. Oops. The next value is going to be account authorization. Make that 1003. Okay, got those values there. Now we need to set up a value for our scopes. Our scopes represent, from the previous tutorial, the actual Google API services, the actual API we want to use, and we enabled the YouTube data API, and so we're going to specify that in our scope. So we'll set up another value here, and I'm going to call this one scopes. And it's going to be of the type mutable list, so it can be updated. It's what the Google account credentials requires, so we'll set up a string for that, and then we will initialize that with mutable list of, and in here we add our list of scopes. In this case it's going to be our YouTube scopes, and we can just specify read only for that. Okay, we just need one more final value here, and that's going to be used for our shared preferences, and that will be saved. So we'll call this one preferred account name. How to spell preferred? Oh, this pref. Oh, 2 C's for that account. Oops. Okay, so those should be all the objects we need. Now I need to create another value here to represent a Google account credential. So I'll put that just below the companion object block. Private value, and I'm going to call this Google account credential. Okay, and that's going to be of the type lazy. Okay, and basically we'll just initialize this when we first call it. So basically we can call Google account. Nope, I don't want that one. So it's going to be Google account credential using OAuth2, because we passed that into a scope. So we'll just use the activity contents and pass in the scopes that we set up in our companion object. We do need to set a back off there, and we'll provide it with the value exponential back off. And that does require braces. And I've got a slight error there. Where is it? Okay, it's showing up in my manifest file, and I haven't closed that properly. Okay, so now we'll set up the initialization for our EasyPermissions. I'll go underneath my onCreate activity here, and we are going to override a value here on, what was it, request permissions result. So in here we just need to call out EasyPermissions, and it matches what we've got here. So it's on request permissions results, request code, permissions, and grant results. Now I'm going to create a function to get the Google account. We all need to put checks in place in case this is the first time the application's starting, because it's a critical permission. We will need to set up our EasyPermissions to get access to the account name. Okay, so I'll set up a function there. First of all, I'm going to use EasyPermission annotation after permissions granted. I'll just explain what that is after I put in the request permission get accounts. Let's add a function underneath here. Choose Google account. Okay, so the after permission granted annotation, basically once the user's granted access to the Google accounts, it will recall the choose Google account again. Manually previously would have to manually code that in. Okay, we've got an error here. It's basically at the very bottom here of my Android Studio. It says only constant value can be used in constant expressions. Okay, this is dating back to the Android environment, so I will stick a const in front of that. Normally you wouldn't need to for Kotlin. Okay, now let's start work in this. Okay, so we'll do a check first to see if we've been granted permissions. So we'll use EasyPermissions in this case. Does it have permissions? It does take the activity contents, and let's specify the permission we're looking for. Call manifest permission, and it's the accounts permission we're looking for. So if we've already been granted that, we can get the account name. So I'll create a value for that, and we get that from our get preferences, our shared preferences. If we haven't actually saved this, we will save it in the on activity result, but later on. Okay, so get shared preferences. We will be marking this as private. Good idea to do that. And we'll call get string, and it's the preferred account name. We'll set an off for that. Okay, so we'll do a check on that account name just to see if it's been created and saved to shared preferences. So account name is not equal to null. We can now set that to our Google credential. So we'll call Google credential, set account name, and pass in the account name. So it's been successful, so we can now go forward and check our remainder preconditions that we set up in the previous tutorials. Okay, so put an else there just in case. So if the account name, we don't have an account name, we will need to set one up, and we'll do that in the on activity result. Okay, so we'll call it start activity for result. We'll pass a Google credential will provide us with a new account intent, and we do need a request code so we can pick it up in the on activity result, and that request code will be, let me check here, request account picker. Okay, and finally we need to do a check here, of course, because if we don't have permissions, we're going to have to ask for permissions. So we'll call EasyPermissions, request permissions. Again, this is going to take the activity context. The next thing is going to be a message to the user why we need this. So this app requires to access your Google account via contacts. So that's quite a specific naming that. Okay, the next thing is the request code, which will be request accounts. And the last thing we need to provide is the actual details of the permission we want, manifest.permission.get accounts. Okay, and that completes the choose Google account code for this. We need to handle the start activity result for when the result of the request gets returned to us. That happens in the on activity results method. Okay, so down here I will handle that request. So it's a request account picker. I want to handle that when that gets returned back to us. Now we need to do some checks in here. Just check the result code first. So check that the result code is result OK. And I also need to check the data here, that it's actually got something in it. So check that that is not equal to null. And we also need to check on the data extras to see if they contain values, because we need to access one of those values. So we'll do a check to see that that's not null as well. We can get the account name if we create a value for that account name. And we do a call on our data and get a string extra, and here we can call our account manager key account name. So this should be the name of your key account on your device. So hopefully you should have a value here. If not, there's probably a lot of work to be done if you don't have an account name for your Android device. Anyway, so we'll do a check on that anyway. So if account name is not equal to null, so we'll set that account name to our preferences just to make our application start quicker if it's saved as a shared preference. So I'll set up a value. We'll get the shared preference object first. I'll call it settings equals get preferences context mode private. So we want to get a private object there. Now I'm going to set up a shared preference editor to write our field to. Okay, now we can call our editor. Put string. I'm going to pass it in the preferred account name, and then pass it in as a tag, and then we'll pass an actual account name itself. We do need to apply that for shared preferences. And we'll also set that value for our Google credentials. So we call it the Google account credentials, set account name, and pass in that account name. And if all that's good, let's go through the remainder of the check preconditions. Okay, we do need to go inside the preconditions and call the choose account. So here's the preconditions here. We'll add another else if condition. Else if. So we'll call out Google, and we'll call selected account name, and we'll check if it's null. So if it's got no value, we can now call our choose Google account to set a value for that. And if all this passes, and we might have to do a bit of work by getting the user to grant permission for the accounts and inserting our account name. If all this passes, we'll amend the string here. So we're looking for GPS, we're looking for network availability. Let's add another one in here, account name. And we will, I'm just going to press Alt Enter and add the value for that. So let's say, okay, so Google Play and network and account name. available. Save that to our new string, and let's run that and see if this works. Okay, the application's now started. I'm going to check Google API availability. Okay, already it's Google API Authenticator is asking us, it needs to access the contacts so we can get our account name. So there, select allow, and this is being generated from our easy preferences as well, just note that. So I'm selecting that again now, and it's asking us to choose an account. So I'm going to select my main account here, select OK, and now I've been told that my account name is available, and that would have been saved to my shared preferences. And that completes the EasyPermissions tutorial. In this tutorial, we had to first of all get the user to grant us access to get accounts, which is a critical permission. And then we also need to provide a prompt after that, if we're installing the application for the first time, for the user to select their preferred account. And once we had those results, we passed that value, which was an email address, up to the Google account credentials, and we also saved it locally on our device in the form of a shared preference, just to make the restarting of the application a lot faster, instead of having it to make online requests to the Google account credentials. And so that completes this tutorial. If you do need to get hold of this documentation, it is free. You just have to sign up for a free YouTube membership. If you want to get access to all the episodes on this tutorial, which is ad-free and does include bonus information of me providing all the debug analysis, you will have to sign up for the professional membership plan, which is $10 a month. And if you want to keep notified of my tutorials that I'm working on YouTube, I do post a number of tutorials on YouTube. Don't forget to click on that subscribe button. Thank you for taking the time for watching this one. Bye for now.